Hi everyone. This is part two of getting started. So going through everything or the basics of what you need to know to get started for the school year, setting up your classroom, materials to prep, lesson planning, and all of the things that you might need to know right off the bat to get yourself started. So hopefully you watched part one. That was all about the classroom setup and just some questions to kind of go through and ask yourself. And some of those things that we talked about in part one will also apply to things that we talk about in part two. But this part two is going to be really covering the materials to prep, lesson planning, and then the intro or expectation ideas, some things that you maybe want to do or some ideas that you might want to try this year. So to start with, I feel like at the beginning of every year, even as a veteran or more veteran teacher, I always feel like my to-do list is crazy. Like there's just so many things to do, to prep, to get ready for. And so I know I felt very overwhelmed as a new teacher, or I feel very overwhelmed almost every year at the beginning of the year. Like, okay, what do I need to get done? So there's a couple of things I'm going to go over with you guys that I found that help if you have these prepared like ahead of time, or this is where you should start essentially. Now with that, there might be some other things that your district asks you to do, or some things that you might need to like know or go over to be able to do these things. And so those also kind of are included in this list as well, but I will go through those. So the first one I have on there is just meet the teacher. This could be a packet, this could be just like a one pager, something to give like parents and guardians to show them like who you are, talk to them about like you and your class, whatever that may be. I put this as number one because in some districts, mine included, the meet the teacher night is before school even starts. And so really I start with that. And for meet the teacher, I can also, if you guys want me to, I can create another video and I can go over some things that I include in my meet the teacher and then just some ideas in general. I also have included a copy of like a template that you could use for meet the teacher that is located on the coaching corner or coaches corner page. So you can go ahead and check that out. The second thing I put on there, and this doesn't apply to every teacher, but I included this also because I think like syllabus / curriculum map or pacing guide. So if you're teaching high school, when I taught high school, I had a syllabus ready for the kids like day one to show them what they needed to know. I also provided the syllabus for parents so that they knew what was going to be expected of their child for the year. But with that, another thing of where to get started, not necessarily a material you might need to prep, would be the curriculum map or pacing guide. So figure out what yours looks like for whatever grade level you're in, whatever content you're in, or whatever area you're teaching at that time, so that you know what your pacing should look like for the year, and then start thinking ahead to those resources and those units. And then the next thing I have down would be an expectation slide presentation or a resource of some sort. So separate from the syllabus, which is more curriculum based and what you're doing for the year, although you can include your behavior expectations and things like that on a syllabus. I would include or put together some sort of an expectation slides, which I also have linked like a version of that for you on the Coaches Corner page. So I would go ahead and check that out. But really, it depends on if you're elementary or secondary. But I find slides to be the most beneficial for my students, or like the easiest for me to go through them with or with my class. So I just have like each slide is like a new expectation and we talk about it and we go over it. the first couple of days of school so that they know what's expected of them. For resources, I do have posted in my classroom for a couple of my expectations, like posters or like an anchor chart outlining how I need them to do certain things so that they can quick reference it. So that could be a resource that you also put together as well. And side note, if you do expectation slides, you can also print off and blow up individual slides within Google Slides. And that can be a poster that you put up on the wall. And I've done that before. And so you're kind of doing both at the same time. The other thing that I would strongly suggest for any teacher is to try to get as far planned out into the school year as possible. But I feel like my sweet spot is always like the first week and a half of lessons. If I can get the first week and a half like planned, and not necessarily like every little thing is put together for the first week and a half, but it's planned. I know what I'm doing. Like I have everything like set up and I'm working towards like putting together all of those resources, then generally I don't really feel like I get behind throughout the school year or like I'm really rushing to get things done. However, I am a secondary teacher, and so that's a little different than being an elementary teacher, for sure, because my prep is a little different, or is a lot different, actually, as you guys probably know. So I would say be looking ahead for lesson plans, but just first week and a half, if you can get the first week and a half like planned and the first couple of days like prepped, then you should be able to like through your plan periods or when you have time to work on things, be able to continue to keep working in advance so that you don't fall behind. So that's just something to think about. For the lesson planning aspect, speaking of the first week and a half, I'm just going to go through like the first 3 things really that I do with my class that can be modified for any classroom. And then we'll go on from there. So the first thing I always do with my kids, like step 1, brief introduction. Here is who I am. This is this class. Maybe you go through some things on the syllabus depending on like, you know, what grade level you teach, or maybe you go through just a couple like quick hitters so that students know them. And then step number 2 is always, I'm going to say step, like this would be step 2 and 3 kind of, but step 2 is always get to know you activities and expectations. So you need to do something where students kind of get to know you as the teacher, but also can get to know classmates, and really just kind of foster that like culture in the beginning of the year, like set it up right. And it just depends on how you want to set up your classroom too, and that also depending on how you want to set it up or what you want the classroom to feel like. That can also dictate what like activities you do as well. And then expectations of what you expect from them should be one of the first things you go over with the kids. And the reason I have the get to know you activities and the expectations together is because mine are somewhat intertwined with what we're doing. Because in my class, the get to know you activities that I've set up actually like allow me to and have built in like here are the expectations when we do these types of activities, and so that has been really helpful for me, and I'll get through, or I'll talk to you guys more about the activities that I do as well when we get to that. Step number 3 is really set up for the year. So this could look different for any class, but really go through and think, what do my kids need to like have set up so that they're ready, like when I give them these activities, when I ask them to do whatever it may be, they have this already prepped and ready to go. This also can kind of tie back to your like classroom routines. For example, in my class, like in the past we've done folders. Last year I had them like set up their folders how I wanted them to look. They added certain things in there when it came to like tracking data and things like that. And so I had them set that up. That was one of the first things I had them do because they were going to be using their folders almost every day. So I needed that to be like ready to go. This year we're going to do something similar, but also setup can look different for any classroom. So if you need kids to join your Google Classroom, that would be part of setting up for the year so that they can access that at any time. If you have them using any program that you know they're going to use a lot throughout the year, this would be a great time to introduce that and help them like log in and set that up so that they're ready to go when you do start using it. For example, I use a writing program at least twice a week for the whole year. And so on day 3, or really, yeah, it's going to be day 3, I have them log into that and I have them get started and I have them take like the diagnostics that they're going to be using on that website. So really like get them set up for success for the rest of the year, or when they get to things that they're going to be doing frequently. That's really important to do that like right off the bat. So those are the 3 or 4 steps that I would say, like those should be the first couple of days of school. I also have them listed as steps because for elementary teachers, this might be something that you do all in on day 1. Maybe this is like all that it like you get step 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 done on day 1, so you're ready like on day 2 to start with like lessons or with your actual content. I would say continuing on from this, if you're like, okay, I got this, I know what to do, there would be some things to think about. So figure out if you need to be doing any sort of testing or pre-testing of your students, depending on your grade level or your content, because that needs to happen before you really start teaching them anything. If you need to do any sort of pre-testing, or if you want to do like maybe for the first unit, like you need to do some like you want to do a pre-assessment or a pre-test to see how much they already know, then that would be your next step of doing that. If not, if you don't need to do testing, if you don't want to do a pre-test, or however you choose to set that up, then you start and you jump into content. And so whatever that looks like for your grade level or your content area. Real quick before this video ends, just the last thing I want to go over with you guys are some ideas as far as like introduction activities. So I use a scavenger hunt in my class where my kids actually get up and walk around. That also helps me go through certain expectations of like when we're moving around the classroom, hear what the voice levels are. This is what I expect from you during this time. And I've kind of set it up almost like a game. And so that is very helpful, but a scavenger hunt can be very beneficial. Like, where is this? What are my expectations for that? If you have a lot of things posted around the classroom. Bingo, or having kids like have a bingo card where they have to go find classmates that like, to kind of get to know the classmates, like find a student or find a classmate who has a dog or whatever it may be. So you can use bingo. You can have students do some sort of worksheet or a project about themselves, and then maybe even present them to the class. That's super cool to see what kids come up with. You can have them do the line activity where they like get on one side of the room or on 2 sides of the room, and then they come to the middle based on like what you say. Like if you'd rather be 8 feet tall versus like 3 feet tall, or whatever it may be, or if you would rather this kind of thing. So, or if you believe in this, come to the middle, whatever it may be. And then the last one is a STEM activity, maybe doing more of a collaborative activity with students just to get them working with each other. If that's the kind of culture you want to set, then this can be very beneficial, just to see how the kids work with each other. So I hope this helped you get started on your classroom.